My name's David, and I'm an alcoholic. And I didn't drink today. I say that for a reason. First meeting I went to, back then you had to have 24 hours to pick up a white chip. And that they asked if anybody had 24 hours, and I wanted that white chip so bad. God, I wanted that white chip. And I couldn't take it. That was the first honest thing I'd done in most of my life. And the next night I went to a meeting, and when the meeting got started, I wanted my white chip, and I said, I didn't drink today, can I have my white chip? And I got my white chip. And that's the only white chip I've had to ever pick up. I don't want another white chip. My sobriety date is April 19th, 1976. In April, I'll have 33 years, I hope. I don't say that bragging, but I say that because, yes, I'm proud of it. Last night, if you missed Clint's talk, you really missed a good lead, a good talk. And again, I applaud Clint. My friend Bill and Renetta that are behind me. And, you know, I'm standing up here and with three people behind me, and I've got close to a century of sobriety backing me up today. You know, how can you lose when you've got that happening? There's no way to lose. My stories, my drunk-a-log is quite colorful. I led an interesting, dangerous life. I was raised on a farm. First of all, somebody asked me last night about my southern accent. I do not have a southern accent. I have a southern drawl. And you people that go to the Alano Club are pronouncing it all wrong. It's the Alano Club, you all. Just thought I'd straighten you out on that. My God, I was raised on a farm in Kentucky. My home group is the Blue Chip Club in Georgetown, Kentucky. I'm living in Harrisburg, Kentucky now. I have a farm there, a mountainside farm, and it's a wonderful place to live in the summer. So that's why I'm here in the winter. I was raised on a farm in Kentucky, and I come from hard-working people. My dad was one of the hardest-working men I've ever met in my life. We had no money. I was raised on a racehorse farm where the salary was absolutely it was poverty, below poverty level. When I was 8 or 9 years old, I started working on the farm, and I worked for 50 cents an hour, and I was expected to carry the load of any man. If a man couldn't do it, or it was too tough or too dirty for a grown man to do, my dad would give me the job to show him it could be done by a boy. The money that I made, I worked for 50 cents an hour. The money I made went to either buy school clothes or went back into the household to feed us, to take care of us. I was always little. I was the runt. I was picked on in school, and I hated going to school. I hated every minute of it. I hated the teachers. I hated the kids. I hated being there. My mother would make my shirts out of feed sacks, floury feed sacks that you bought chicken feed in. And I wore them little shirts to school, and I hated it. We raised chickens, so I had to take eggs to sell to the teachers so I could eat lunch every day. And I hated carrying them eggs to school. I hated it. And the bullies in school found out that I was carrying eggs to school, and they would break my eggs, and I'd cry. And one day I figured out, if I don't sell eggs, I don't eat lunch. And don't break somebody's eggs that's hungry, you know. They will turn on you. And I learned to protect what was mine. I learned to be mean early in school. I knew what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be. Uh, I wanted to be a jockey. I was little, I was light, I had a lot of talent, and I wanted to be a jockey. I think that I also wanted to be a drunk. I think that my earliest recollection, that big word, is I wanted to be a drunk. My dad was a big man, probably 3/4 Indian with high cheekbones and long black hair, and all his brothers were that way. And they would stand up and they'd take a shot of whiskey and throw it back and say, "That's good." And I remember being little, tiny, and I'd put soda or water or something in a shot glass and I'd throw it back and I'd say, "That was good." And that's the way I drank. That's the way I drank. I left home when I was 15. I was accused of something in school that I didn't do. And I got punished pretty good. I was 15 years old. And I walked up to the principal and I told him, "I've been punished. I paid for the windows you told me I broke, and I didn't break them. Just keep in mind that they belong to me." So that night I shot all the windows out of the schoolhouse. I got on a horse van and I went to Albany, Georgia. We had a training center there. I weighed about, in my 90s. I was light. I learned to gallop horses there. I learned to break horses out of the starting gate. And about 90 days after I left home, I was back in Kentucky and I was riding races. When I was 16 years old, the day I turned 16, I signed a 5-year contract. Not a lot of money, but it was a contract, and I was with one of the major stables in the world. I was 16 years old and living in New York and no supervision and making a little money and getting write-ups in the New York paper, and I thought, this is it. It's been so easy getting here. I'm going to the top. Within a year from then, I wasn't getting any write-ups in the papers. Within a year from then, I was a full-fledged, full-blown alcoholic. I'd go out to, with other jockeys, we'd go out to dinner, and they'd take their girlfriends or wives or whatever, and they would have a drink before dinner, and they would have a light dinner, and they'd have a drink after dinner, and they'd dance with their wives. And I'd have a drink before dinner with them, and I'd have a drink after dinner with them because I didn't eat. And I'd go back to my room and I'd sit on the side of the bed and I'd drink a fifth of vodka. And that was a nightly thing when I was 16, 17 years old. Walked out on that contract so I couldn't ride races anymore. Went back to Kentucky and started breaking horses for a living. Met a girl and got married and made a lot of money and just average life, but I kept on drinking. I need to say that I've been married 3 times, I've been divorced twice, and I've only loved one woman in my life. And let me tell you, I've still got her. I've still got her. I met this one girl. We got married, and I come home from work one day, and the door, the locks had been changed, and there was a little duffel bag sitting on the porch, and a little note pinned to it, and the note said, "Here's your dirty clothes, and I burned the clean ones." I showed the judge that. He laughed. He thought that was funny. I thought he was going to feel sorry for me, but he really thought it was funny. And that one run off with a Baptist preacher. Brother Jack got that girl. Drinking and drugs really got heavy in my life after that. Any excuse. Never a reason, but an excuse to drink some more. I met another girl, and we started living together. And of course, I had one child by the first wife, and she got pregnant right away. And we lived together for a while. And I come home drunk one night, and she shot me. And It was kind of funny. I come home and there was a song out at the time, Good Time Charlie's Got the Blues. And I put that on, the old record that goes around, I put that on, and I was sitting in the corner, and I said, Sue, I need to tell you something. I've met somebody, and she's young, and she's good looking, and she's got some money, so you're going to have to take your kids and get out. And she said, no, Bucky said, we're not going to do it that way. Said, and she come around the corner, and she had my old double action 9-shot revolver, and she was shooting. And the last shot got me right in the chest. And it cut the main artery that feeds your heart. I don't know, Jenny could tell you what it is, but and I said, well, you've killed me. And the blood was hitting the ceiling and pumping out. Every time my heart would beat, blood would pump out. And she walked over to me, and I drug myself over the phone, and I was trying to call and get some help. And she stuck her finger in the hole, and she said, you SOB, you're too mean to die. And she called the life-saving people, and they took me to the hospital and worked on me for a while and shut me up for dead. He's a dead man, you know. And Dr. David Clark walked in and said, I know this man. Let's try this new surgery and do this bypass on him. And they didn't know to split me down. They split me across through here and took parts out of me and put new parts in and saved my life. And, you know, you would think that would be enough to sober you up a little bit, but drinking just got worse. I couldn't work. I couldn't feed my family. I was, you know, just a mess. And when you get to that point in your life where life is that bad, there's only one logical thing to do, and that's go out and buy a Harley Davidson. It's the only smart move to make. But you know, some people ride motorcycles, some people ride Harley Davidson. And when I bought that Harley Davidson, I bought the whole way of life. I quit working, I quit everything that I'd ever cared about doing or having, and I lived the motorcycle life. I joined an outlaw motorcycle club, and I can even talk about that club today because it's been disbanded many, many years ago. Most of the people that was in that club are dead now. They were either murdered or died from cirrhosis or motorcycle wrecks or car wrecks or something. I lived that motorcycle life for 7 years. And in that 7 years, I went as far down as I could go. Let me get back to that lady that shot me. And I'll tell you some of the insanity of alcoholism. I woke up in Seminole County, Georgia, married to her. Same one. So I've been married to some people that I didn't even like, much less love. I lived that life for a long time. And I would lay in that big old easy chair in the clubhouse, and I'd lay there drunk. And if there was something to do, if there was some club business to be taken care of, and you can take that any way you want to, that nobody else wanted to dirty their hands that bad to do, they would say, sober up a little buck, he'll do it. And they would sober me up enough to send me out on that mission, and I'd get it done. You see, when I was little, they broke my eggs, and I learned to be mean. I was taught to be mean. Part of my story, and I know before anybody gets up and leaves, I know this is a story about Alcoholics Anonymous. Part of my story is about drug addiction. When I was riding in that club, I become addicted to morphine. Absolutely loved morphine. While I was out there, Maker's Mark was my alcohol of choice. And if I couldn't get that, Mad Dog 2020 would do just fine. And if I couldn't afford Mad Dog 2020, Beagle oil wasn't bad. Now, most of you don't know what beagle oil is, but it's a horse liniment you rub on the outside of a horse's leg, and it blisters them. So imagine what it was doing to my insides. My drug of choice was morphine, of course. I loved it. And if I couldn't get morphine, acepromazine or Rompum or Torbagesic would do just fine. If I couldn't find a clean needle or a clean syringe, I would go to the manure pile at the horse barn and I'd dig one out and I'd stick it in myself. This is a habit. This is a habit. I've worked for some of the finest people in the United States, and I never took advantage of any of the opportunities that were given to me. When I was a young man, I was in Albany, Georgia. First job I had, we heard about the Air Force base there last night. There was a general in the Air Force, and he talked to me one day and he said, David, said, if you will come, said, we've never been able to have kids. Said, if you'll come and live with us, you'll never have to work, you'll never have to want for anything. We'll send you to school, we'll send you to college, we'll do anything that we can do for you. And I just laughed at him. I told him, no, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a jockey. And another opportunity that I turned down. I rode that motorcycle club. I'm jumping back and forth, so, if I get ahead of you or behind you, just holler and I'll try to slow down or catch up. I rode that motorcycle club, and I'd always been close with my parents. I'd always loved my parents. My dad was really, really hard on me. My mother was a brutal human being, but I loved her. Today, if a child was raised the way I was, the parents would be put in jail. They would be put in jail for what I went through. But that had nothing to do with what I did after I was an adult. And I tell you that for a reason, because I'm getting to a part. On Christmas Eve night, Christmas Eve was the big holiday at our house. Went out to Mom and Dad's house on Christmas Eve, and I had my colors on, and I had this beard that was like that, and hair that was really long, and I was really a mess. And a lot of people at Mom's house, and I decided that I would like to pick on my sister's boyfriend. And my sister's boyfriend was one of the richest people in Lexington, Kentucky, and he was also an ex-prize fighter. And do I need to tell you who won that fight? And he just liked to beat me up. I mean, he just liked to beat me to death. The next day I showed up at Mom's house, and the door was locked. Now, you got to understand, we're country people. We didn't lock our doors. The doors was never locked. And this time the door was locked. And I beat on the door, and Mother come to the door, and she said, you can't come in. And I said, why can't I come in? And there was a storm door, and that was locked, and she wouldn't unlock it, and I was trying to get it open. And I said, let me talk to Daddy. And Dad come to the door and opened the door, and Dad was big, and he stuck his foot in the door and held it so I couldn't jerk it out of his hand. And I said, why can't I come in? And he said, son, we're tired of watching you die. We can't watch it anymore. And I left, and I was mad. And I laid drunk from that day till Easter Sunday. And on Easter Sunday, I was really a bad day. On Monday, I tried to kill myself. Life had got too heavy. And I know somebody in here can understand when I say life was too heavy to bear. The weight was just more than I could handle. And I tried to kill myself, and I couldn't even do that. I couldn't do that right. I just half did it. In some way, somehow, I managed to call Alcoholics Anonymous. You've got to understand that by this time, I had lost the ability to even read or write my own name. I couldn't even sign my own name. There was absolutely nothing left in here. I called Alcoholics Anonymous, and this lady answered the phone, and she said, "I know what you're feeling. I'm an alcoholic too." And I couldn't believe that this lady was an alcoholic. You know, she didn't slur her words. She talked clear. She just sounded up. But I could see her sitting behind the desk, and I could see that starched white uniform and white stockings and white shoes and a white hat with a red cross on it, and I didn't like her. But she told me where there was a meeting, and I decided to go to that meeting on Monday night after Easter, and Monday night after Easter. And I went. Now, in Paris, Kentucky, the AA meeting was in the Episcopal Church in the basement, behind the courthouse, up the street from the jail. So I parked down in front. I had an old rusted out pickup truck that I was driving. So I parked down in front of the courthouse and walked around by the jail and up, because if I was over by the jail, people would think that was pretty normal, and they wouldn't know I was going into a church. And there was a man standing at the door, and I didn't like him either, and his name was Buddy. And I said, "Am I in the right place?" And he said, "Well," said, "you probably are. If you got a drinking problem, I know you are." And I hate smart people like that. You know, I didn't need that day. I don't remember anything about that meeting except they talked about fear. And I thought, fear? I ain't scared of nothing or nobody. But I was sitting there and I had my little pistol in my pocket so they couldn't keep me. I could shoot my way out if they tried to keep me. After the meeting was over, one thing that they did back then, they passed the basket and they said, "We're passing the basket for donations, and if you need some, take some out." And that basket passed me by, and I wanted to take some out, but I didn't. I was so proud of myself. I didn't take anything out of it. And, you know, I had begun to grow. That first meeting, I'd begun to grow. There's a black lady there named Miss Ella. Her name was Ella, but I never felt like I was good enough to call her by her name without putting Miss to it. After that first night, she said, "David," said, "you know, we have Al-Anon." And I thought that they'd already told me that alcoholism was a disease. And I thought that Al-Anon was another disease they had. And sometimes I think it might be. But I said, "No, I didn't know you had that." She said, "David, Al-Anon is for your wife or your girlfriend or your mother or anybody that cares about you." And I looked at Miss Ella and I told her, "Lady, I ain't got nobody." And this lady, a tear, these little tears, and as dirty and as filthy and as bad as I smelled, she kissed me right on my filthy cheek and said, "David, you've got somebody now because you got me." You know, what a lady. What a lady. You know, it's to have somebody, to experience somebody like that in your life, just one time in your life, is worth anything I've ever gone through or ever done. That lady died a few years ago, and it broke my heart. You know, the people. I started going to the Token Club in Lexington. And now I wasn't good enough to sit in the chairs with you folks. The Token Club was in the Bell House. The Bell House was a big old plantation home that was used at one time for an underground railroad to help free the slaves. And I often thought, you know, and it's still freeing the slaves, this place. I wasn't good enough to sit in the chairs with you. I'd sit over in the corner. And a lady named Sarah asked me if I'd like to read how it works, and I said, no, I can't do that. And she said, can't you read? And I said, I used to read, but I forgot how. I said, I can read one word, but by the time I get to the next one, I forgot what the first word said. And she said, David, I can help you. And she taught me to read how it works. That's why I'm such an SOB when I'm at a meeting and they're reading how it works and people are talking and people are pinching and people are getting up to get coffee. These words are sacred to me. These words saved my life. It's nothing to laugh about. These words are what kept me alive another day. Finally, Sarah asked me, said, David, I think you're ready to read how it works. And I stood up in front of the group, and I got ready. And it took me about half the meeting to stumble through it. And I was terrified, absolutely terrified. But I read how it works. And nobody said, sit down, we need to talk. Nobody said, we're in a hurry. They sat there and listened to me stumble through how it works. My God, when somebody asks me to read how it works now, I'm honored. I'm honored to read those words. Now you got to understand, a lot of things you folks got to understand about me. I didn't do everything that you told me to do. You told me, don't get involved in a relationship in the first year. You told me, don't bring any of your financial problems into AA. And they were the two, and don't get a woman sponsor. Well, my first real sponsor's name was Jackie. She was a writer, she was a teacher, and she was a wonderful person. And I owe my life, I owe part of my life to Jackie. But now, when I started getting better all over. Everything started working. And me and Jackie was going out to eat one night, and I said, Jackie, I've been thinking. And she said, David, I've been thinking too. And I said, boy, how easy is this going to be? This is wonderful. And she said, we talked about it for a while. And she said, now, David, I think this would just be wonderful. I'm sure that we're going to have a lot of fun doing this. We're going to enjoy it. And I'm gritted. Oh, I'm gritted, you know. And she laid her hand over on my leg. And she said, David, before we do this, I need to tell you something. One of us is going to get drunk, and it's not going to be me, and I'm really going to miss you. That lady could control me, an iron fist and a velvet glove. What a wonderful friend that I had. She died last year. What a wonderful friend. The part about not getting involved in a relationship for 6 months. My beautiful bride, Jenny. My beautiful, beautiful bride, Jenny. She invited me over to her house on Wednesday night. I'd been sober 6 months. So see, I went to half measures anyway. I'd been sober for 6 months, and Jenny invited me over for dinner on Wednesday night. And on Friday night, I showed up. And I knocked on the door, and Jenny come to the door, and she said, what? I said, I'm moving in. She said, you can't do that. I said, yeah, I can. Got my suitcase right here. You know, I've been there for 32 years now. 32 years. Not only 32 years, but 32 wonderful years. You know, Jenny taught me that there's more to music than rock and roll. You know, me and Jenny can listen to any kind of music. Jenny goes, she caught that disease, Al-Anon. She caught it. You know, everything we do together. My wife's a traveling nurse, so we get to travel some. So it makes life wonderful for me. They told me to keep my finances out of AA. I did for a long time. I went to early in sobriety, 6 months in sobriety or something. I went to a branch bank in Kentucky, Central Bank, and I walked in, and poor little old dumb me, so dumb and so sick. I walked in and I told the teller, I want to talk to the president of the bank. And she kind of chuckled and she said, we don't have a president here, we have a branch manager. Would you talk to him? And I said, is that the highest up person you got here? And she said, yes, that's the top of the list here. So I went back in this room and I sat down and I talked to this branch manager. And I told him my life story. And I told him about being married, about making money, about blowing my money. I told him about divorces and lawyers. I told him about armed robbery. I told him everything that I could think of. Because now you folks told me to be honest. So I was honest to this banker, and he said, I got it. He said, I got it. This is candid camera, where they at? I said, no, I'm for real. And he said, why are you telling me, are you going to rob the bank? What are you going to do? And I said, well, I don't have any money or I don't have any credit, and I'd like to borrow some money from you to get my credit started because I'm going to buy a racehorse farm someday. And this guy said, where's the cameras? I said, I'm for real. I told him I want to borrow $500 to get my credit started. And the guy told me, he called me back later and he told me, he said, I don't believe that anybody would walk into my office and tell me what you have unless they're sincere. And I'm going to loan you the money, and this is the way I want you to pay me back. I bought a racehorse farm. I bought a farm and built a racehorse farm. Well, about that farm, keep your finances out of AA. Wonderful friend that's dead now, Mike. All my old friends are dead. The people I come into the program with, most of them are dead now. Mike Robinson had a piece of property that he wanted to sell, and I wanted to buy it. And we was afraid that somebody was going to get taken, or somebody was going to get beat, and somebody was going to get drunk. So Mike and myself just backed away. And my sponsor and his sponsor was mortal enemies. So we let them iron the problems out, and me and Mike just signed the papers. How much easier can you make it? I was working on the farm one day, and Mike's sponsor come down, and he was watching me dig up post and set new ones. He said, don't you have a tractor? And I said, no. He said, you're going to kill yourself? And I said, yeah. So next day I come home from work, and he said, he called me and he said, go out to the barn and said, see what you think. There was a tractor out there, 430 case tractor, gasoline powered, and had all the things on it that you need to work a farm. And he said, I told him, Charlie, I called him back and I said, Charlie, I can't afford this tractor. He said, I want you to take that tractor and use it for a year. If you find one better or cheaper, go ahead and buy it and give me this one back. And if not, in a year's time, pay me $1,200 for it. And I've been driving that tractor for 20-something years. Still got it, still running, still doing it. This is AA. This is AA gang. A few years ago, I broke my leg. Doctor said, we're going to cut it off. Your leg's bad enough that we're going to cut it off. And I said, you can't do that. Dr. Corbett, he said, well, we're going to have to. We're trying to save your life. And I said, Dr. Corbett, what if my neighbor's pigs get in my yard? How could I kick them to get them out? He said, we're going to give you another day. He said, we'll give you 24 hours. If we can turn it around in 24 hours, we're going to save your leg. And they did. After they saved my leg, he said, you're going to be on crutches the rest of your life. You're going to walk on a cane. If you ever get off of crutches, you're going to walk on a cane. He said, I know you've got a dear friend that builds the best artificial limbs in the world, he said, "Why don't you let me take it off?" And I told him, "Can't take my leg." Thank God he didn't. I still got it. I walked up steps tonight. I walked up steps. While I was laid up for weeks and weeks in the hospital, my dear, beautiful wife, Jenny, she was working herself to death on the farm and trying to take care of her horses on the racetrack and trying to take care of me at night and just, trying to do it all. While I was in the hospital, my home group, the Blue Chip Club, would split the meeting and 3 times a week, and half of them would come to the hospital and half of them stay at the meeting. And when I got home, they did that about every night. Half of them stay at the club and half of them come to the meeting. The people in the Blue Chip Club would come and mow my grass and mow my fields, help me in my fences, help Jenny with the horses. The people in the club, the people that wanted the same thing that I wanted. They wanted to be sober, and that's the way they were staying sober another day. These things that I'm talking about now are beyond anything that I could have ever imagined in my life. All of the things that I drank at because I wanted or needed or thought I had to have, I've got all these things through sobriety. I'd like to stand up here and tell you, I worked the steps perfect, but you'd know I'd be lying to you. I don't do anything perfect. I work the steps as best I can. I work the steps enough to keep me sober today. We was really having some hard times. There was no money. We was just barely feeding the horses, and me and Jenny was eating bologna and beans. And I come home from a meeting one night, and there was a house full of groceries. The freezer was full, the refrigerator was full, and there was sacks of groceries sitting every place. There was a dozen roses on the table for Jenny, and there was an envelope full of money, and there was $500 in it. There was nickels, dimes, quarters, 10s, 20s, and $100 bills in an envelope for me. Gang, this is AA at its finest. This is AA. This is humanity at its finest. It's not out there. It's not on the street. It's in here with us. And we have the power to pass this on. We have the power to give it away. Had my friends come over from Mesa to be with me today. My friend Bill, I didn't come in this program to make friends. I will tell you that right now. I don't stay in this program to make friends, and I don't go to meetings to make friends. But the friends that I get from being here is beyond any words I can tell you about. I met Bill about this time last year in Arizona, and I said, I got a cabin in Kentucky, got a farm in Kentucky, got a cabin. You ought to come visit me sometime. And he said, all right. And I said, yeah, you will. Middle of summer, Bill showed up. What a treat. What a treat. What a treat. One guy that I sponsor, and my God, I sponsored him a while, and he sponsors me a while. His name is Zip, and he was here at Christmas. He flew in from Miami to be with us for Christmas. What a thrill. What a thrill. The love that I looked for out there, I've found in these rooms. I have found in these rooms. You've given it to me. I'm retired now. I don't have to work now. Who would ever thought? Now my wife has to work, but I don't. Who would ever thought that I could ever retire? Who would ever thought it? Last night Bill talked about going to college. I always felt inferior that I had no education. I had part of an 8th grade education, and I was always ashamed of it. And if you'd asked me, I'd say, yes, I graduated from, and you would know I was lying. few years ago, I think I was 54 years old, I went back to high school. Bill got a degree. I got a GED. And my GED was just as important to me as Bill's degree was, as Clint's degree was to him. You know, I got a degree. I got a GED. You know, got my picture took, got my cap and gown, had red and white sneakers on, and got my GED. You know, it's something that I could do. You know, I ride motorcycles today. Love to ride motorcycles. I've got two, and Jenny's got one. She makes the money, so she's just got one. You know, we've got a beautiful farm in Kentucky. We've got a hillside farm with oak and ash on it. We've got a couple of horses we ride. You know, life is absolutely wonderful. And it's not because of anything I do or anything I did. I just don't drink. I go to meetings. If somebody asks me for help, I try to be there to help them. The hand of AA was there when I reached out. I want this hand of AA to be there when anybody else's reach out. Hear so many people come into the program. We have so many people come and go and come and go and come and go. And I've been in the program for 3 years now, and I just can't get past the third step. You can get past the third step when you walk into these meetings. If you want this program, you can do it. Well, the fourth step is just I can't get to the fourth step. I couldn't get to the fourth step, and I'd been sober about 3 weeks, and old man Jimmy D told me, he said, it's time you do a fourth step. And I said, well, Jim, I don't write real well, and they're helping me do that, and I've got to get a legal pad, and he said, what makes you think you're so important that you have to write down so much? And he went over and he got a little scrap of paper out of the trash, and he straightened it out. And he got me a pencil, and he helped me write down cheating, lying, and stealing. Said, now this is what you've got to get rid of. He said, now you write down something good about yourself. And I thought, and I said, I don't know, there's nothing good to write down. He said, well, come back tomorrow night and we'll think again. So I went back the next night and I said, Jimmy, there just ain't nothing good about me. He said, well, I would tell you to write down that you like people. I said, but I know you hate everybody, don't you? I said, Jimmy, I hate everybody and you're top of the list. And he said, well, you write down that you like animals, because I know you like animals. And that was my fourth step. That's all I needed. That's what I needed to keep me sober until I could do a real fourth step. But I made the effort. I did that fourth step. I did something. I didn't just stand there and cry. I did something. You know, you people have taught me all this. You people have given me all this. I hear so many people talk about, it's just too hard. It's just too hard. I just can't do it. You know, they ought to go to Al-Anon. They just can't do it. And they go out and they get drunk. Or they go back out and they stick needles in themselves. You know, I just can't do it. This is too hard. This is not hard. I've said it before, I'll say it again, and I'll stick by what I say. Getting sober and staying sober is the easiest thing I've ever done in my life. It's the easiest thing I've ever done, because I wanted it more than I'd ever wanted anything. These people think writing down their fourth step is hard. Let me tell you hard. Let me tell you hard. It's crawling across the floor. A grown man crawling across the floor to steal change out of their mother's purse. You know, that's hard. Being sent to buy your child, your little child, your infant child, formula, Similac formula, and coming back with a pint of whiskey and a package of green Kool-Aid for the kid. That's hard. That's hard to do, but we do it. Walking into a 7-Eleven market at midnight, and there's a little girl behind the counter, and you pull out your shotgun, your sawed-off shotgun, with your special loads in it and your ski mask on, and you tell her, give me your money. And this little girl is standing there, and you can see her blue jeans turning dark where she's peeing on herself. And you want to just take her in your arms and hold her and tell her it's all right, but you can't do that because you need another drink or you need to fix yourself. That's hard. Coming here and being loved, gang, that ain't hard. I was telling you about my parents and them telling me not to ever come back, that I wasn't welcome there. They were starting to watch me die. A couple of days after I got sober and I was about halfway through the DTs, I guess, I called Dad. And I told him, Dad, I'm trying to stay sober. I've been sober for 2 days. I've been in DTs. I think I'm going to die. And Dad come and got me. He said, don't move. Don't try to drive that old raggedy truck. Just stay where you're at. And Mother didn't come. Dad come and got me in Paris, Kentucky, and he took me home. And he held me up in the bathroom while Mother took my clothes off and put me in the bathtub and gave me a bath. I was 33 years old and couldn't even give myself a bath. That's hard to do. But I'm grateful today that I got to suffer that humility. I got to be that person that got sober that day. That's all I've got.